One of the most versatile aspects of Smash Bros. Is the projectile game. Some characters are centered around their projectile usage. Some rely on a single projectile and play their game to accompany it. And some characters don't even have a projectile. Specifically, there are some projectiles that make a character, but there are others that rarely get used, if at all. During this video, I will give my opinions on the different projectiles in the game, and rank the best and worst projectiles in Smash Bros. Ultimate. Since a ranking system like this can be shaky, certain criteria need to be put in place to explain how these projectiles will be ranked in the most fair and even way possible. These moves will be ranked as if they were on an arbitrary Smash Bros. Fighter. This does not mean that they will be put on a specific character, but this video will look at how good the move would be if placed on any character in the cast in order to get the best ranking system. Mii Sword Fighter's Gale Strike might be great with this kit, but how would the move be without a killing or comboing up air? This is why these moves will not be taken into a vacuum necessarily, but in relation to the general cast. As another note before we start, some projectiles require a special resource or property to be activated. For this list, it will be assumed that the arbitrary character always has this property, such as limit, enough MP, or 0% damage to activate these projectiles, but it will still be assumed that the whole move must take place alongside the projectile. So if there are any other side effects to the move, they will not be looked at to determine the quality of the projectile, but the move's startup and end lag will be examined. This video will be split into 3 separate categories, since it is a little tricky to categorize projectiles that have completely different functions together. For example, Mario's fireballs are great for their comboing ability, but is that better than C4's trapping ability? Despite the answer to that example, the problem is clearly demonstrated, and therefore these projectiles will be ranked in 3 separate categories. The first will be the killing projectiles, of which the top and bottom 3 will be looked at. These are the moves that have the purpose of taking stocks. They may have other uses, but this is the main one. The next will be the general damaging, comboing, and trapping projectiles, which are in the category as the title suggests. For these, the top and bottom 5 will be ranked. The final section, we're going to have a little fun, as it will examine the niche projectiles that rarely get used and are usually on other moves with other functions, but still exist in the game. For these, the top and bottom 2 will be ranked. First up is the killing projectiles section. The third to worst killing projectile in Smash Bros. Ultimate is Byleth's fully charged Fail Knot, his neutral B. Since this is the killing projectile section, this move will only be looked at in terms of the second version, the fully charged one, since that kills much earlier. The primary issue with the move is its startup. The fully charged light version of Fail Knot Arrow takes 114 frames to start up. That's over 2 entire seconds. So despite it killing well, it will practically never be hit in the neutral or advantage state, even with a really hard read. It is very easy to react to and will only hit reliably from a shield break setup. This is the main and pretty much only use of this move. It is the single move on this list that has the most startup, and has tons of end lag too at 46 frames. However, there are some good aspects to this move that does not put it at the worst killing projectile. For starters, it has an absurd amount of killing power, and kills Mario mid-stage on Battlefield at about 75% with no DI, which means that at low percents on a shield break, the situation of which this move will be most used, it will kill insanely early. In addition, it travels almost instantaneously across the entire screen once it is shot, and even breaks shields quite easily. Even though it has a lot of horizontal range, it does, however, have essentially no vertical range, and can sometimes even be avoided by crouching. This move is not seen in the competitive scene because Byleth players almost never use it in the proper situation, because they have their down B to punish shield breaks instead. But on a character who does not have that move, fully charged Fail Knot would be used to kill after shield breaks. However, other than shield break setups, which it is excellent at, it pretty much has 0 use due to its long startup. Therefore, since it has at least 1 use, which is pretty useful, even though it is an extremely niche use and not valid for an entire move in a limited amount of move slots, it is more useful than the next 2 moves on this list. The third best killing projectile in the game is Samus's and Dark Samus's Charge Shot, their neutral B. Charge Shot is an amazing move due to its huge versatility. Since it is one of the chargeable killing neutral Bs, it has multiple variations, but unlike some of the other types of these moves, all of these iterations have their own unique and important purposes in Samus's moveset. While not all variations of this move kill, since most of the time it will be thrown out, the intention will be to get a kill, it was placed in the killing projectile section with all of its lesser charged versions as well. The most important variation is, of course, the fully charged version. This move does an insane 28% base damage and kills around 105%, on an average character depending on stage size, positioning, and other factors. This move has only 16 frames of startup for a killing projectile that can be sent over halfway across the stage. In addition, the fully charged version can be comboed into, using edge guarding and ledge trapping scenarios, but most importantly causes fear in the opponent due to the knowledge of how strong this move is. Just the threat of throwing out this move is powerful. But it did not become the third best killing projectile for its killing ability only, but rather for its use in other variations. The middle charged version can be used in many combo setups from low to mid and even high percents, either as a finisher, combo extender, or even combo starter. This is due to its massive size as it forces characters to either shield or commit to a full hop to get out of the charge shot's way, of which Samus can then punish. Finally, the weak charge shot is extremely useful. This move can be used the same way as Mario's fireballs, just a bit slower. Its straight horizontal trajectory makes people need to commit to an option and allows Samus to cover either the grounded or aerial lane and punish the opponent's chosen option. Furthermore, the small charge can combo and jab lock into a kill. This version of the move comes out on frame 3 if she is already charging the move, and 13 if done raw. The reason that this move is not higher is for two major reasons. The first is that for the move to be most effective, it must be fully charged, which does take a little over 2 seconds, which in Smash is a while. Despite being so versatile and threatening, it does take some time to get up to that point. The other reason is that the charge shot is slightly laggy, and not super safe up close, especially on lower charges. For these reasons, it is only third on the list. The second worst killing projectile in Smash Ultimate is Ness's PK Flash. While this might be a controversial choice, when looked at in comparison to the other potential options on this list, it just does not add up. First off, let's talk about where this move misses the mark. Depending on how long the move is held, PK Flash can either come out at a minimum of 40 frames to a maximum at the fully charged version of 117 frames, which is more than the previous move in Byleth's Fail Not. Another issue of the move is the damage output. For a move that lasts from 40 to 114 frames, it should kill pretty early, but that is not necessarily the case. When fully charged, it takes about 2 seconds to come out and kills around 80% from the center stage on Mario, and the weaker versions kill even later. For the damage output, this move does from 11 to 27 damage, which is not terrible, but on a move that is this hard to hit, the risk far outweighs the reward. So in general, this move has too much startup, does not do enough damage, and does not kill early enough for the risk of the slow move, which has 21 ending frames. As for the positive aspects that makes this move not the worst killing projectile in the game of Smash, PK Flash does have some variations in the move, so it can be used in a few more situations, but it is not useful in the neutral as Ness players will get hit for using it, and can be used as an edge guarding tool, but its path is so predictable, slow, and does not go that far from Ness that it is pretty easy to anticipate and avoid. It can be used for shield break punishes, but some Smash attacks kill a lot earlier than this move, and most kill at about the same percent when fully charged from the ledge. The issue is that in situations where it would be very useful, other moves just do its job better for more reward and less risk. Overall, while it is not the worst killing projectile in the game, it comes close. The second best killing projectile in the game of Smash is Nikita, Snake's side B. This move does not have the best frame data, nor practically any on-stage uses, but it is such a good edge guarding move, it overtakes more versatile moves such as Charge Shot. It comes out at a frame 41, but since Nikita will practically only be used when the opposing character is off stage, there's no real downside to having this start up on the move. The size of the projectile's hitbox is pretty massive, and the explosion is even larger. The most common use, as stated above, is for Snake to pull this out when the other character is off stage, as this is the single best edge guarding tool in the entire game of Smash. It allows Snake to do this without even leaving the stage, and with a projectile that can follow the opposing character as they recover, and can even catch them on their get-up option from the ledge. But by far the best part of this move is the turn radius that the move has, and the speed. This allows Snake to drive Nikita all over the stage and into the opponent. This means that even against characters who can stall off stage, who would normally be able to outlast other projectiles, they have no fight against Nikita, which can follow them way better. This makes the opponent scramble to get back to the ledge, and even easier for Snake to catch them. Another great aspect of this move is it lasts for a really long time, and can go extremely deep to catch the opposition. This is not even mentioning the setups that Ledge Snake can create by flying Nikita up into the air and using it to pressure Ledge on its way down. Overall, while it is not as versatile as the other moves, it is so good at the niche it occupies, which is extremely important in the grand scheme of things, that it takes our number 2 spot on the killing projectiles list. The official worst killing projectile in all of Smash Bros. Ultimate is Bowser Jr.'s Cannonball, his neutral B. This is one of the worst moves in the entire game, as it has really no use whatsoever. It is not fast, it cannot combo, and the one thing it should be good at, killing, it's horrible at as well. As for its primary purpose, the Cannonball kills at 115% fully charged and 230% uncharged. This is terrible, as almost all Smash attacks kill before this, so there's pretty much no need to ever use it. In addition, it is slower than most projectiles as the charged version, which barely does anything and comes out frame 37, which is over half a second. For the version of the move that kills, it comes out at 97 frames, which is very slow, especially for a move that only kills at 115%. Another bad thing is that this move has 35 frames of end lag on both versions, and is about minus 20 on shield. Some people might say, while smash attacks might be stronger, they are mostly stationary, and the Cannonball is a projectile, but it is so much slower to come out, is reactable with a shield or jump, does not have a large hitbox, and does no damage at a range from 7 to 20% depending on the speed, that it is basically worse in all ways than any smash attack. For a move that takes 37 frames to come out, it should do a lot better than 7% damage. It cannot be used for shield breaks, neutral, and definitely not an advantage, and therefore literally has no use, and should almost never be used by any character with any moveset. Due to the combination of terrible killing ability, so many startup frames, and minimal options, it takes the spot of the #1 worst killing projectile in Smash. The #1 killing projectile in the game is by far Kaboom. Due to the restrictions and limitations in the criteria of this list, the character, hero in this case, does not need RNG or MP in order to fire this move, and therefore it takes the #1 spot. Without these two aspects, it drops significantly, but under the rules of this list, it easily gets the #1 spot. This move is completely ridiculous. First, its frame data. The move comes out frame 6. That is insanely fast, and in addition, is positive on shields, +2 at that. It takes a total of 43 frames for hero, but with a move that completely covers in front of him, that cooldown time matters a lot less, especially for the long time the opposing player must sit and shield if the move is shielded. As for the projectile itself, it begins with a small ball of flames which travels quickly across the stage horizontally. When the move hits the opponent, it activates, or it activates when it reaches about halfway across the stage. When this occurs, it releases a massive explosion that covers a huge portion of the stage in both grounded and jumping distance away. The explosion does 26% damage and lasts the entire time of Kaboom's explosion, which is 31 frames, and that is over half a second. During the explosion, just to add to the move's power, there's a super strong wind box that sucks opponents into the explosion and works on both grounded and aerial opponents. Whether the opposing character gets hit by the first explosion of the move or the final frame of it, it still does the total 26% damage and the full knockback, which is immense. But the most useful part of its move is its ability to kill. This move kills at around 90% on center stage and is mostly used to take stock super early. One of the single best uses for this move is to fire it from on stage and hit the ledge, or even a little bit off stage to catch recoveries. The long-lasting move and the wind box helps it hit the opponent, and proximity to the blast zone means that the opponent will be obliterated if they are hit off stage. Overall, Kaboom is easily the best killing projectile in the game, and if it could be used at any time, maybe even the best move in the game. The second category of projectiles to be ranked in this video is the more general projectiles. These are the projectiles whose main goal are to be used to get damage, combos, or trapping the opponent. These are the majority of projectiles that zoners use, and typically the most seen projectiles in the game. While they can kill, their main use is for other aspects, and they have great use in the neutral for most characters. This list was definitely the hardest to make on both the best and worst 5 projectiles, and therefore if a move you thought deserved to make the top or bottom 5 ranking didn't, let me know in the comment section. We will start with the 5th worst projectile in the category. The 5th worst damaging and trapping projectile in the game is Isabel's Lloyd Trap, her down B. This move in theory is not a bad move, but there were 2 main reasons why it was placed on the bottom 5 parts of the list. Before that, let's talk about the frame data and the stats. This move takes 49 frames to plant and cannot be done in the air. When it is planted, the Lloyd is immobile and activates when either another player lands on or runs over the rocket, and it shoots up, catching the opponent and doing a minimal amount of damage or knockback. The other way it can be activated is through Isabel launching it herself, but if neither of these requirements are met, it disappears after 10 seconds. Again, in theory, it sounds good, but there are flaws that give it some problems. The first is that the move just does not work properly all the time. It is supposed to be a motion-censored trigger, but some characters can run right through it, and everyone can run over it and shield to make the move miss. This makes it practically useless in some scenarios. The next reason is the time frame for which the move can be used. Since it disappears in 10 seconds, it does not have the advantage of giving time for the opponent to forget where it was placed, because before they do, it will already despawn. This also means that creating trapping setups is difficult, since the time is just not long enough to reliably use it. It can be used in some combos, which keeps it out of the bottom 4, and is a decent trapping tool, which is always important, but it might be the worst one in the game. The 5th best damaging and spacing projectile in the game is Wolf's Laser. This purple laser has been in the conversation for the best projectile in the game since the start of Ultimate, but while it is still amazing, there are a few flaws that keep it out of the top 4 on this list. For the positive aspects, this move does a crazy 8% for a move that comes out on frame 15. These are a few of the main reasons why the move is so good. Wolf's Laser does not do a ton of damage, but for the short amount of time it takes to come out, it moves at a good speed across the stage to do constant pressure, while letting Wolf run behind it and cover the opponent's defensive option against the laser. Finally, it is also useful for forcing approaches from the opposing character. Since the laser is fast enough to create constant pressure as mentioned earlier, a lot of times Wolf players use this move to shorten the distance between the two fighters. The more the Wolf stands back and fires the laser, the more annoyed the opposition will be with the Wolf, and to avoid the pressure, they will approach Wolf, which is exactly what he wants. With his quick moves and good airspeed, Wolf can beat out the other character's approach and win the interaction to start combos. If the opposition does not approach, they must maneuver around the projectiles, putting Wolf in charge of the neutral game, or take the damage, which racks up quickly over time with just a few shots. Some of the negative aspects of Wolf's Laser that keeps it at only 5th on the list of the damaging projectiles is shining in one aspect: the offensive capability. Wolf's Laser is great for neutral pressure, but it will rarely be used ever in the advantage state, disadvantage state, or any other area of the game. All the following projectiles on the list not only excel in the neutral, but are great in the advantage or disadvantage state to give them a little bit of an extra edge over the other moves such as this. The 4th worst damaging and conditioning move is Mii Gunner's Laser Blaze, her second neutral B. Initially, I thought that this move was horrendously bad, but the more I looked at it, and the other moves on this list, I raised it up in the rankings a little bit. This does not mean it is good, especially in Mii Gunner's kit, where she has tons of other better projectiles, but it has its uses even though they may be niche. This move has only 10 frames of startup and is 32 frames of cooldown, but does only 5% damage. It does get a little better though, as it can be fired quicker and done in succession, but this is not the most useful aspect. The move's only real use is in the neutral state as a way to pressure the opponent to approach, but it does not do the best job at it. Since the move does barely any knockback to the point where it almost only makes the opponent flinch, and only does 5%, it is not a very threatening move. It seems to be a combination of both Fox's and Falco's lasers in terms of the damage, knockback, and speed categories. While both of these moves are alright in Ultimate, they are not the best and are only made to shine due to their extremes, but Laser Blaze takes those away to create a very bland middle move. It has some use in the neutral, but almost any other projectile has that other aspect that would make it a better move. The 4th best damaging and combo projectile in the game is Rob's Gyro. As seen by top Rob players in the game, this move is an absolute menace in all aspects of the game. The Gyro, Rob's down B, comes out at frame 3, and is both a charged and uncharged version, which allows it to have great versatility. At the base level, if down B is just pressed regularly, Rob shoots at the projectile, which if hit does 10%. It then spins on the ground like a top, which also has a hitbox and does about 3.6% damage and makes it extremely difficult to pick up. After the spinning stops, the gyro becomes a regular projectile again, an item, and can be picked up by anyone. The first variation that makes this move so great is that it can be charged to increase the damage, knockback, and spin time on the move. It will come out a bit slower by 6 frames, and obviously need the time to be charged, but it is really worth it. The biggest difference between this move and Wolf's lasers is the capacity the gyro has in working in multiple aspects of Rob's game. The first would be in the ledge trap phase, in which Rob can place the gyro at the ledge, or at roll distance to completely cover one or more options, limiting the opponent's choice of movement and making a few less options for Rob himself to need to cover. This move can also be used for edge guarding, as its speed and trajectory is perfect for catching lowish recoveries from the stage, and the knockback is high enough that it will gimp and sometimes even kill the opponent. Finally, and maybe the best part of the move, is its use as an item, in the advantage state. This allows Rob players, and theoretically any other character who picks up the item, to do tremendously damaging combos, and can even turn a not combo character into one with brutal combos just due to one projectile. The one problem with gyro is just that it can be picked up by all characters. While it is hard to do so while spinning, it is possible, and even easier to do while it is slow and not moving. While all characters can use this projectile very well, it gets bumped down a little bit, and therefore ends up as 4th best damaging projectile. The 3rd worst damaging and conditioning projectile in the game is Mii Swordfighter's Shuriken of Light, his second neutral B. In my opinion, this is honestly one of the most pathetic moves in the entire game. It is not the worst in this category, as it has a few saving graces, but it is by no means good. The first is the damage it gives out. The Shuriken of Light can give anywhere from 2 to 6% damage, a tiny amount for the other stats of the move. A single projectile comes out in 13 frames, moves slowly along the ground, and has 24 cooldown frames. In addition, the projectile itself is not affected by gravity, and therefore is not that useful offstage. The only main aspect of the game that this move works in is the neutral, to create pressure and force the opponent to approach. But it fails there too, since it is not strong enough or damaging enough to be a real threat. It is also so slow that it is reactable, and the threat of the Shuriken is non-existent since it can almost always be shielded or reacted to by a jump or other option. In addition, it only does 2% up close, and forces the opponent to minorly flinch. As for the positive aspects, there are a few. Obviously, it is a tool that can be used in the neutral, not super effectively, but it is possible to do so. It also has the ability to lock opponents after a tech chase, but that is kind of where the move's strengths end. It is just lacking the pop or extra quality to the move that could make it a solid choice for Mii Swordfighter players to pick. The 3rd strongest damaging and comboing projectile is Pac-Man's Neutral B, his bonus fruit. This move is so good purely due to its versatility. While it may take a while to charge, the combination of the cherry, strawberry, apple, orange, melon, Galaga, bell, and key makes this one of, if not the single most complex projectile in the game, or move, for that matter. For simplicity, this move will be broken down into 4 parts. The initial 5 projectiles, the cherry, strawberry, apple, orange, and melon, and each of the final 3. One for the Galaga, one for the bell, and one for the key. The first 5 moves are not actually that great. They range from 8 to 72 frames of startup depending on the charge time, and are not really that useful. They can give opponents, but they do not do great damage or kill, but they can combo break. But the bonus fruit really shines in the final 3 parts. The Galaga is insanely good for comboing characters. Since it spins around in the air when thrown out, PacMan can use it for many combos into his strong aerials and can create fairly easy 0 to deaths for top players. It does take 92 frames to charge and come out, but due to the move's pure strength and its advantage state, it is worth the charge time. The bell is next, and probably the best of all the bonus fruit projectiles. This move takes 112 frames to come out and only does 7.5%, but it stuns opponents in place, on the ground and in the air, and it can be used to feed into combos. It follows a strange arc, but once mastered, it can be used in combos to mess up the opposing character. It can be used for extended setups or a finishing blow, but with this move in hand, Pac-Man becomes one of the scariest characters in the game. Finally is the key, the standard killing projectile. It comes out at frame 132, but does 16%, and moves extremely quickly across the stage, killing at low percents. Overall, the move has some flaws in its startup time, but the reward is just too great for the downfalls of the move to be noticed in most scenarios. The second worst damaging and trapping projectile in the game is Corrin's Neutral B, his Dragon Fang shot. This move is just way too slow and not strong enough to be good or a viable projectile in Corrin's moveset, or in the game in general. This move takes 17 frames to come out on its weakest, but can grow in strength and in size when it's fully charged and comes out on frame 47. The way this move works is that it shoots at a blue water-like projectile which stuns the opponent, and then Corrin's hand performs a giant chomp, which can either be a quick bite or a long and stronger one. The charge of the ball and bite differ from each other, so a powerful ball does not necessarily imply a powerful bite. The issue is that since there is a bite after the move, even in its shortest variation, there's no follow-ups unless the projectile hits and stuns the opponent right away so the bite can hit as well. This is a large issue, because it makes the projectile itself practically useless. It cannot be used in the neutral, since it is over a second of lag, and the same could be said for the other 2 phases of the game as well, the advantage and disadvantage state. The ending bite is just too much for the move to handle and makes it significantly worse. The fact this move is viewed with the bite at the end of the move, not just the blue projectile, is due to the rule set of the list, which states that a move as a whole is going to be looked at. Overall, this move is just too slow and laggy that it is a great disadvantage even if used by the Corrin player. The second strongest damaging and comboing projectile in the game is Pikachu's Neutral B, his T-Jolts. This move takes an aspect that other moves on this list have been missing and uses it to its advantage. Where Wolf's Laser only truly excels in the neutral, Rob's Gyro a little bit in both the advantage and neutral, and PacMan's Bonus Fruit a little bit everywhere, Pikachu's Teedle is almost perfect in both the neutral and advantage states, and can only be used by Pikachu, and therefore only to his advantage. It is also a decent move in the recovering stage of the match, and can help Pikachu get back to the stage and prevent him from being ledge trapped. As for the move's stats, it comes out on frame 19 and only does a mere 6% of damage, but this move shines in other aspects, where damage does not really apply or matter that much. In the neutral state, this move is so good, and it can, just as Wolf's Lasers, pressure the opponent constantly and force them to approach the Pikachu player. As for its use in the advantage state, it moves slow enough and has so few end lag frames, especially from the air, that Pikachu can use it as a shield and conditioning tool while approaching. He can run behind the Teedle and choose to either read the opposing player's defensive option or stun them with the move's low knockback to start a true damaging or killing combo. This move can be used in edge guarding as it is affected by gravity in the air and can gimp, but most importantly, on stages with walls, it clings to the stage and it can easily catch low recoveries. This aspect of the move also helps in the disadvantage, where Pikachu can have the Teedle hit the stage and then have it chase down the ledge trapping opponent to give him a safe recovery back to the stage. As for its ranking, the only reason it is not the number one projectile is not due to any of its own flaws, but just the sheer brokenness of the best projectile. The single worst damaging projectile in the entirety of Smash Ultimate is Ivysaur's neutral B, his Bullet Seed. This move is completely and utterly horrible, hence the reason it is never used in the competitive scene at any level. The move does not kill, it cannot be used in neutral, disadvantage, or even really advantage state. It is the weirdest hitbox above Ivysaur, which is small, and by the way, does a minimal damage and knockback for a move that comes out on frame 12 and ends on frame 44. The move does a mere 1.5% damage for each seed, and while they come out fast, they do not rack up enough damage over time at all. There's very little positive about this move. The biggest weak point of this move is that it shoots straight up and does not cover a lot of ground. This means that it is very hard to hit the opponent, since the only time they would be above Ivysaur would either be in a juggle situation or a crossing up one. In the first situation, Bullet Seed is just too slow to hit, and for crossing up, almost any other tilt or smash attack would be better in this situation. Overall, Bullet Seed is just a horrendous move and deserves the worst spot on this list for sure. The best damaging, trapping, and comboing projectile is Snake's Grenade, his neutral B. This move, when looked at through a critical lens, is absolutely insane and helps Snake tremendously, but would help any other character as well. First off, the move comes out frame 1. Yes, it comes out the first frame that Snake presses the B button. This does not mean that it can be thrown frame 1, but it does activate, and makes it very good for Snake in the disadvantage state. The grenade can be pulled out of a string that is just a little bit not true, and can force a trade with the two characters, which gets Snake out of the combo and back into the neutral. This is so extremely good, since it means that Snake essentially cannot be comboed, period. The next major use is in the neutral state. Snake can just start throwing grenades and pulling them out in the neutral to overwhelm the opponent. Since the grenade can be pulled and thrown on frame 21 and lasts for a total of 2.5 seconds, it can be used as a good pressuring tool in the neutral to force approaches and rack up a lot of damage. As for the advantage state, Grenade is also amazing here, as it can set up for combos at certain percents, and can straight up just do damage to the opposing player at 18% per grenade. It can also be most useful for ledge trapping, where similar to Rob's Gyro, it can be placed down and take away from the opposing character's options. However, there are two possible grenades to use at once. These and many more reasons are the cause of why Snake's Grenades are the number one projectile in this category. It is excellent in all three major aspects of the game, and useful in others as well. Since this move is so much better than all of its competition, it gets rewarded with the number one spot. In this section, we're going to have a little bit of fun. The final group of projectiles in Smash are the niche projectiles that do not have any real use in the neutral, and are mostly tied onto other moves with other effects. These moves will rarely be used for their projectile as the purpose, rather some other aspect, and the projectile is a side effect that can do some damage or gimp some opponents sometimes. While these are not very viable as projectiles, they do make for a more fun, less serious ending to the list, and it will be interesting to rank these practically worthless projectiles to see where they stand up. The second to worst niche projectile in the game is Snake's Cipher, a side effect of his up B. The move is considered so bad as a projectile, not really due to its damage or anything, which is quite low, but due to where the move hits, most projectiles travel either horizontally across the stage or are affected by gravity, but this one flies straight up. The issue with this is that it is so hard to hit another player above Snake. When the opponent is above Snake, it would be so useless to send the Cipher up in the air in order to jungle or hit the opponent, when all characters have better options in up airs and other moves. The Cipher, which is slow and only does 6% damage, is not really worth it at all as a projectile. The one saving grace for this move is that it can create a shield for Snake above him while he is recovering, if he lets go of the move or is hit by any move with low damage. The Cipher just does not do much of anything, but it at least, even in a very situational situation, has a use unlike the worst niche projectile in the game. The second best niche projectile in Smash Ultimate is one that is very rarely seen, not due to the move being bad, but due to the luck and setup needed to receive it, and it is Villager's Plank of Wood that can randomly spawn from being cut from his tree, the down B. It does take a long time to come out, and the move is luck-based due to the rest of the move, but once it spawns, it is amazing. This move does not have a lot of special properties, but it can be used like Rob's Gyro as a catchable projectile. It has a small hitbox on it in order to protect the Villager when it spawns, but after that, it can be picked up by the villagers and used in combos. This is where its ability shines. It does not kill or do a lot of damage, but for an arbitrary character with a random variable moveset, having projectiles like the Villager's Plank of Wood to create custom combos would be great. It would be able to create long horizontal combos into a killing move off the side, with a combination of fairs, nairs, and other killing moves. The single worst niche projectile in the game is the group of stars that comes out after King Dedede performs his up B and lands on the ground. These projectiles are so bad, since they are not good as projectiles themselves. The point of this list is to rank the projectiles themselves, but not the entire moves that they come with. Yes, these stars can help King Dedede if he lands on stage with his up B, by giving him a bit of protection. But in a list that ranks the projectiles themselves as the main aspect of the move, this means that we now have a projectile that takes over 80 frames to come out, does 5% damage, and minimal knockback. Obviously, this move would never be used for the stars themselves, and they do offer good protection, but in the context of this list, they are clearly the worst in the game. They can only work on stage, do such a low amount of damage, and are tiny in size, do no knockback, and are even minus 46 on shield. They practically have no use and therefore are ranked as the single worst niche projectile in the game of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The best niche projectile in the game of Smash Ultimate is Robin's Elwind. This move is Robin's up B, and therefore is primarily used as a recovery move. But he does shoot out 2 green crescents downward to boost himself up, which do damage and are actually quite useful. In relation to all other projectiles in the game, it is not amazing, but it does have some interesting properties that put it first in this list at least. The first is that the move does have some great range and can be used for offensive or defensive gimps. Since there are 2 projectiles, it can cover a great range off stage that flies downwards. Whether Robin happens to hit someone off stage while recovering or purposely uses this move at the ledge to hit a recovering opponent, it has enough knockback and damage to be useful for gimping. It comes out quickly, and the best part of the move is its spiking ability. The first projectile in the beginning of the move where it comes out of Robin's hand can spike opponents, and it becomes an even better tool for gimping. As stated before, it is not the best projectile, and would not be used in a lot of situations, but it is the most useful of these niche moves. Overall, projectiles are an extremely interesting class of move in Smash, due to their versatility, but this obviously does make some moves better than others. When writing for this video, I initially wanted to create a section for the best and worst projectiles overall in the game, but I think a simple explanation will do here. Due to Kaboom's killing power and insanely large hitbox and windbox, it beats out Snake's grenade as the best projectile in the game under this rule set. As for the worst, it is pretty obviously King Dedede's stars due to the crazy startup and the lack of use for the projectile itself. After going through all these projectiles, let me know what you think the best and worst killing projectiles are, and if I missed any, put them in the comments down below and say why. I would like to thank UltimateFrameData.com for their help making this video, as they provided the frame data analysis for this. Thank you for watching, subscribing, liking and commenting, and hit that bell to be notified for my next upload. Happy New Year everyone, and as always, let's go Islanders.